When GenAI came, someone said 15% or 20% of productivity improvement. Then it went to 50 and now it's 75. And I'm like, why am I behind? I'm not even close to 50. AI otherwise usually was for the data science team and machine learning team. Now everyone wants to connect with it, use it. The more people will interact with it, the more ideas will come, which was the story of internet. As a technology leader, I think our job is also to educate. Yes, there was fear of using this technology. Yes, there's a fear of privacy.
Hello, I'm Anshul, and this is Floating Points, where we talk to the leaders responsible for making change in their organizations with artificial intelligence today. Whether you're a leader tasked to do the same, a builder in the AI space, or just interested in real conversations with real leaders making real change, you're in the right place. Today, I'm in the Bay Area to talk to Bhawna Singh, the Chief Technology Officer of Okta.
Okta provides cloud software that helps companies manage and secure user authentication to applications. With almost 6,000 employees, Okta is a leader in the identity and access management space.
Today we have Bhawna Singh joining us on the podcast. Bhawna is the CTO of engineering for the Okta Customer Identity Cloud, powered by Auth0. Has over 20 plus years of experience successfully building and leading teams of engineers to transform and scale technology for global user bases. You've led multiple tech teams, and I'm sure we'll talk about that, and scaled systems from 0 to 100 million users before, expanded product lines globally, and spearheaded innovation and really leveraging transformational technology. And so over the last couple of years, I know I've been following along. I've heard you talk a lot about being and talking about all this new stuff in AI and being actively in the forefront of these conversations here. And so, especially talking about how companies can adopt AI, which is obviously the huge interest that we have here on this podcast. And so we're definitely honored to have you as a guest on our podcast to provide your perspective. So thank you, Bhawna, for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Great. So I'll just set up kind of the structure of the podcast since this is the first time we're running this through, and then we'll dive right in. So, we have 11 topics that we'd want to cover, and kind of in the spirit of floating point arithmetic, right? Which
I love. I think I told you already 20 times.
It's great.
I love the idea.
Exactly. So we're going to do everything in powers of two, right? So we're going to start the first topic with 1,024 seconds, 512. I won't cut you off. There's none of that going to be, but
I think it won't be fun if you don't.
Exactly. It'll get really fun as we kind of get there.
You have to cut me off. Yeah.
Exactly. It'll get really fun as we get near the end there when we start rapid fire some of those questions. And so with that, I think we're ready to just dive right in. So Jeff, what's our first topic?
All right, so let's start the timer actually, so we keep ourselves accountable for this floating points intervals here. Nothing's working today. Okay, it's working. All right, so this is gonna be a really tricky question, all right? So how many times do you have to correct people that it's pronounced with a V and not with a W?
Every single time, and it's part of my pronunciation now, that's pronounced with a V.
Okay, I did not even know that. I was like, oh, so actually, I probably should verify how to pronounce this. And I was like, oh, I'm very glad I verified, because there was no way I would have known.
Well, the funny story is I had to ask my dad as to why did you make it W and not V, and his answer was, well, because you're unique, and I wanted to give it a unique spelling. I'm like, that's not very helpful in today's date, because it's every single time I have to explain the pronunciation.
Did you kind of let it slide at first, or like, do you never let it slide? It's like, hey guys, by the way, it's with a V.
Oh, I have been pronounced in so many ways that I take no offense at all. No offense at all. As long as I can figure out that I'm being referred to, I'm totally fine.
You're right. Well, speaking of uniqueness, you've uniquely had experiences, right? Leading engineering teams, and I would say 3 very different industries, right? I think with Ask.com, Glassdoor, and then Okta. I would love to kind of get curious on your take on, of course, how those leading certain different teams in different verticals are, but especially on this topic of AI and where generative AI is going. The way I kind of see is that Gen AI will affect different products in different kind of ways. I can see something like the Q&A search of an Ask.com being fundamentally changed from a product perspective, but maybe the security world of Okta not changing as much. So I'd love to just get your take on your kind of experiences in all 3 of these kind of different products, and how you think Gen AI will really affect these different areas.
Angel, that's a great question. Although I will challenge you that every single category will change, including security.
That's fair.
And the best part, the important part of security vertical itself is that it's affect the AI and the Gen AI aspect of it is going to affect from both sides, from solutioning side of security, but also the bad actors leveraging it in different ways. I think that's how I see it, which is the impact on security vertical. But I'll get to it. I'll go in your chronological order, let's say. My experience at Astrocom primarily, of course, as you can see, was around search, Q&A, content, recommendation. And there is every reason as we look at Gen AI for this technology to have an impact or effect, or let's say evolved experience of all of the solutions that I built. So super excited about that space. But even for Glassdoor, as I look at that experience, leveraging Gen AI for giving better insights, better search for career choices and career decisions. And same with, as I mentioned about security. So I think the underlying aspect of what Gen AI will have an impact is wherever there's data, it will add value into how to evolve and give more impactful experience using that data. So now it's on to us where I see, and that's what as leaders and as technologists we are working on, and you are helping us in some ways as well, is what data we have, is it in the right place? Can we leverage it? How can we leverage it? And then, of course, what application should we be applying it to? I will say, I think outside of code generation, the only other application that I'm seeing I'm seeing more often is this co-pilot version of Gen AI. But I bet you and I feel and are aligned on the statement that Gen AI is way more powerful. So I do think that the next generation aspect, I think you said it in the news, that there's so much of funding that went into so many startups. So that's what I'm looking forward to, which is where will this funding land us? Because I bet each one of those startups with all this funding are going to ideate on unlocking some non-copilot version of Gen AI too. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
It is actually interesting, like the different companies that you worked at, generative AI can affect it in very different ways. If you think about LLMs in general, like they kind of are just a black box of magic. For example, Ask.com, like it can act as a search and retrieval kind of mechanism. For Glassdoor, it can like generate job positions, and you could have it generate content for users that are applying to jobs. Even like just write the cover letter for me, and then I'm going to apply for it. And honestly, like I'm looking through our people that are applying to Codium, and I'm seeing like these very long cover letters, and I'm like, wow, this guy spent a lot of work detailing this out. And then I just keep going one by one. I'm like, wait a second. They're definitely using ChatGPT for this, right? And then, of course, with Okta, we'll probably talk about it in a bit. But like, yeah, this must really disrupt like the whole security space. Whether it's people that are generating content to phish to get you to log into something, or even on the other side, like looking for vulnerabilities and plugging them in, right? Like both sides are getting hit with like this black box of we call LLMs today, right? Sorry, I think you had something to say.
Oh no, I think this is great. I mean, I would love to kind of I want to kind of go off what Bhavna said about there's all these like startups that are building tools to kind of enhance productivity in this co-pilot thing. I'm always like thinking like, I mean, you're actively thinking about how can you use Gen AI in Okta or just any of these companies. Like, what do you think if you would take those like 3 companies that you worked at? What do you think their own products, like not using like other AI tools for internal, how do you think their products will evolve? Using Gen AI. What do you think those first applications would look like for each of those 3?
Oh, now I need to go back to each of those companies and think about it, right? So, look, search is already evolving. I think you look at what Bing is doing, what Google is doing, and you can tell that as users, we're all delighted to see what else and how can it be summarized. So, if you remember the early search era, or even today, the 10 blue links is what we used to call them. I think it will absolutely evolve to no more blue links, just give me an answer. And which is something that when I worked at Ask, our focus was, which is Q&A, which is giving you a smart answer, we used to call it. Now Google also does that. But giving you the user an answer right away. And most of the effort that was spent at that time was to figure out and understand the context of the question, right? Same keyword, different context. It can be interpreted in so many ways. And I think that's what Gen AI will solve for. our models used to be very complex and, running it and refreshing it. Hopefully with Gen AI now, we don't have to do those things. So those are the things that I feel like now you're elevating the problem to be less tactical and more innovative and more futuristic. So that's where I would say for Glassdoor, I mean, there's so much of review content and all of that when we were working on insights and giving better insights. And it would always go into how many insights should we process, how many should be at the top. Now with Gen AI, summarize all of that into 5 lines or 10 or whatever. And I think that is the value because you have different users. Some users are very invested in a company and they need more deeper insights. Some users are just, scanning through. They need a quick insight. But at the same time, on the other side, companies, how could they understand their candidates and what are they doing on their side? So all of that is, the data is there. And as a company, they can certainly leverage. I think the company is also going into conversational Q&A now. So conversational Gen AI should absolutely apply there. So I think the product aspect of both the earlier company, because I'll go into Okta a little longer, is productivity for the user, but also for them as they are building these technologies, focus less on tactical and more on the innovation or the value add they can give to the user. And I think that is some can say it's a big shift, but I think that's an important shift. And when we talk about productivity, this is what I say there as well. How can we take the mundane, day-to-day, repetitive tasks, even for code writing, right, and give it in the hands of the AI so that we can, again, focus on more innovative, complex challenges, because that's where the brain juices, we talked about feeding brains, but brain juices start to flow, and that is where, as we will enjoy. So that's I think at the fundamental level, that's what I'm excited about, the Gen AI technology. Moving into security, as you mentioned, there are both sides of it. And I see in my role at Okta, there are 3 categories where AI is playing a role. Of course, the aspect of, how do we solve for bad actors, attack protection is the biggest area that we are focusing on for our customers, for ourselves, and making sure that we can leverage this technology to bring that experience and solutioning for our customers. So some of our products will come out around that. The second category I would call out is, as I mentioned, productivity. So internal productivity, code generation is one aspect, but how can, the usual customer questions, does it have to go through the full process of customer support team and then someone in the field and then engineering and say, now can you answer this question? Like, can we leverage this data to answer those questions quickly? So productivity is a big aspect. And I think in our conversation before, I mentioned that when Gen AI came, someone said 15% or 20% of productivity improvement. Then it went to 50, and now it's 75. The last quote I heard, and I'm like, why am I behind? So I'm not even close to 50. Okay, but that is an aspiration. How can we improve productivity? And there's so many nuances to improving productivity if we want to get into it. So that's the second, and then the third is AI customers. There's so many AI companies who are our customers who are seeing different traffic, different virality. So how can we meet them where they need us, right? So that's another area that it hits us at all.
I'd be curious to drill down a little bit on that. Like for the AI companies, what is kind of different about what they're trying to look for in Okta versus other companies you've worked with before?
I think primarily what they're looking for, which is what we say, is login solution. When AI companies are innovating, the talent and the skill set that they have is very AI centric. So bringing in a login solution or identity solution that takes care of all the the security aspect, but also the authentication, authorization aspect, so they can again go back and focus on their core, which is not just true for AI, but all companies, but then the skill set in AI is very focused on AI background. So that's one thing that I would call out. More even further, I would say many of AI startups, they have got their funding. They're building technologies, they're rolling out, but the nice thing, I hope they feel that too, is that when they do roll out, it gets a viral impact depending on what the solution is. Can they scale that right away? So that's another area where Okta shows up and is ready however they are ready to scale, and whatever virality they are seeing, we can scale it for them.
Actually, I was going to just say when we deploy to customers like on-prem, there's a lot of like interesting nuances with which teams are even allowed to use generative AI. Where does the data actually go, right? Can the data actually leave to the cloud, or does it have to stay on premise? And then Okta is central in all of this. So we have to make sure like, the right users and from the right teams are able to access it, and then none of the data can be escape into the internet.
So I want to make one very important point. When we talk about AI, we also, of course, talk about security, but identity is such a core aspect of AI. The more you understand your user, the more you are giving your user the privacy, the security aspect of or encapsulating all of that, the more user will be comfortable using your AI solution, right? Because that is the fear, if you really look at it, is my data not going to be private? Will there be a compliance issue? Will there be a security issue if I open this or integrate with this technology? So identity is at the core of AI, and as we see this, call it outbreak of AI technology, I think identity or securing your identity and making sure that your identity technology is in a good place and a healthy place will be at the foundational aspect of it, in addition to your data technologies.
Yeah, actually, I was going to go right into that topic as well, because obviously the section's about product AI, how that's viewed, and so I was really going to just dive kind of into like what are we've talked about some of the AI priorities at Okta. Could we speak a little bit more on this like AI identity parts? Like, where are some of those like tactically, if you were to give advice to like a startup, right? Like, start thinking about these things about identity from the really beginning of your product journey. What would be some of those things that you would want them to think of from the beginning, rather than like patching in identity and security as like I need to be enterprise ready later down the line?
I think that you just hit the right phrase, which is the enterprise ready aspect of it, right? Having a good AI identity hygiene, you can say, or identity platform or identity technology behind the scene that is taking care of your identity in making sure security is in the right place, compliance aspects of it, the privacy aspects, which are very key to identity, which are at the core of using your or we can say leveraging or transferring identity in different places. So that's at the core. In addition to that, how much of data do I want to give to an identity to do something? To give to an AI application to do something or give me an answer, right? So controlling my identity. Once, as an organization or company, you give that assurance to a user and build that trust, now you have given the user a freedom to explore your technology. And that's how I see it. Today, I'm sure you are seeing this too. If I'm using an AI technology and I don't know how my content will be used, I try to make it so generic, and I will live with the answer that's equally generic because I don't want to give the specific information. But if I can trust the technology or this application to say it will secure my identity or it will keep my privacy, it will respect my privacy, then I can give more and get more specific response. I think that is the difference of how, as a user, I will use an AI technology, which is, if I can trust with my data is secure and private and all of that, then I can give more specific information to get a more better and specific response.
So we're running low on this time for this interval, but I have to ask, like, there's a lot of people trying to break in and hack into stuff. How do you keep up to date with all the possible attack vectors? And is there a red team just constantly trying to hack into stuff, or is it like a lot of research? I'm always curious about that.
It's all of the above. There is no one way, right? It's all of the above. Our security teams are staying and making sure that all of these things are taken care of, penetration, bug bounty, all of those things. Our research team, we have a dedicated research team to look at threat vectors, the change in our data, or you can say login data itself, and how is it happening. We publish reports that talks about how often credential stuffing happens, in which industry it happens more. So all of that research goes into then further prioritizing product or product features and strengthening it and all of that. So there is no one way, but I would also call out that the other thing, and that's true for hopefully for all organizations, but primarily companies who are in security spaces, what we call it is security is everyone's responsibility, right? Because it's a matter of when, not if. So just by the nature of that, everybody has to be vigilant, which means security awareness or just awareness of today's, different attack vectors. So we also share a lot of, we make effort to make sure that we bring awareness across the company, not just the few teams. So everybody needs to be aware of what kind of phishing attacks can happen. How could your identity be or fraud could be done? So our teams share a lot of awareness emails and training as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wish my CEO stopped asking me for gift cards.
All right, so first topic was all about product and how Gen AI will affect product, how people think about AI and product. I want to shift the gear a little bit more into kind of, what I think we were maybe going to talk about this in the first section, but kind of career journey and your CTO. I would obviously love to kind of just get a little bit of insight of how did you kind of know that kind of technical leadership was something you'd be interested in, and what are the skills that you kind of like had to build along the way that looking back you're like, okay, if I was to give advice to someone else who was thinking about going this path, that you would have kind of zeroed in on.
I'm gonna show my kids this episode, so they're gonna they're too young to understand.
You want them to be the CTO? Is that
yes, exactly.
Is that the plan?
They're probably too young. They're like only babies, but still, I think they'll eventually through osmosis learn how to do this.
I do have a few T-shirts. It says "Future CTO."
Yeah.
Maybe I'll send them over, Jeff.
Awesome.
I don't think I knew or I was planning to become a CTO. I'll be very honest. I still remember when I was moving from a tech lead role to a manager role, having a conversation with my manager that, no, I still need to keep coding because you know what? Who knows if I like the management path? So I think it's more of like I've always taken career as, am I getting better than myself, and am I having more impact than from the impact I had last year? So that has been my continuous measuring stick, and it led to where it has led to, and I'm happy. No regrets. But throughout the process, I think something that I loved, and I've seen the shift in the tech industry itself, is we were more boxed or focused or competition aware, and I think we shifted somewhere from there to open source and more sharing and more tech, calling it a tech community actually. And I think the shift has gone further now when I see more women talking about pay it forward and all of that. So I think there's a shift in how in the whole tech career that I've seen, but it's a good shift. And that's what I love about this space, I would say, which is I also see that tech adopts or embraces good changes sooner than other industries. Now, don't quote me on that, although this is getting recorded. But maybe this is a biased opinion, but that's how I see it. And that's why I love this space. But as a career aspiration itself, I've always aspired to how can I get better and what can I do more? And my definition of my value is the impact. Am I making impact and am I learning? So every role that I take or every time I move to a different job, I look at what can I contribute, but also what can I stretch myself. And I always talk to my hiring manager. So I understand why you're bringing me. Here's my aspiration. I would like to learn these things. So could you help me expose in these areas? And it has worked well.
Okay, cool. And now that we talked, like all these C-level CEOs, they're all like, if they don't talk about AI, they're going to get in trouble. So I guess what has your like the CEOs or you even have directed for generative AI within Okta? There's a lot of areas we can cover here, but just curious, like what has been the directive, and then what is going to be the action you think?
Yeah, I mean, directive is what is our AI posture, right? And the answer is it has to be a strong posture. This is a technology that has so much potential, and we have seen it, and we are going to continue to see it. So the directive primarily and what we are working on is one in the product itself, and our focus for this year is attack protection. How can we create more Gen AI products or solutioning to solve for more attack protection? And the other one is ease of use, because we are developer-friendly product, so we want to make sure that our developers can use it, extend it easily, which means they need a co-pilot version of our product, right, to make sure that it makes it easy or reminds them that configuration can lead to something else. So that is our focus for this year, attack protection and ease of use of the product. So that's the area of AI space that we are evaluating. And the second, like I mentioned, productivity, right? Can I do more with the same? Making sure that my team feels great about doing more or the work that they are doing. Those are the two areas I would say I'm focusing for this year.
Yeah, I'd love to move like abstract out a bit because I think with any kind of transformational technology, the role of a CTO changes, like the focus areas and how to think about the problems changes. So I don't know if you could maybe kind of abstract out like how has AI changed how you think like CTOs should think about the problems that they have to work on, and maybe if you could contrast that with like a previous transformational technology and what's so unique about AI that's changed like the CTO role.
Well, AI so I think we should establish the fact that it's Gen AI, but AI
Yes,
has been
Gen AI,
here for
yes.
years, and AI itself has transformed, if you remember, from more rule-based or regular expression-based to model-based to deep learning, and now Gen AI. So I think AI itself has transformed. And as a technology leader, harnessing the power, right? Especially if you have unique data that can be of value. I think that is the you could say thinking hat that we have to put and enabling role that we have to do to, okay, how can we enable our team to think about it, create that, give that space so they can innovate in that area. So that is an important aspect. And how do you make that data available in the hands of your team, especially when you need to make sure that it's PII aware or PII removed, let's say. And making sure that this really huge data is leveraged in a secure way, but of course for the innovative solutioning. So that's one area I would say, the role itself. But more importantly, as a technology leader, I think our job is also to educate. So yes, there was fear of using this technology. Yes, there's a fear of privacy. Has it changed in the many years of time? I mean, I think we were talking about it before, and I compared it. I was talking to a friend and we talked about internet, and we said internet was also a hype. Yes, it was. And look at where we are today. I can't think of not being connected. I don't care if I'm flying on the airplane and I'm on airplane mode, I need internet. So that is the level of connectivity we have with internet. Gen AI and this technology, I see, has also created this embracing aspect for people who are not tech, who are not from tech. Like every single person, your kids, not yours is baby, but kids are using it. Like everyone's using it who are not writing code. If you really think about it, AI otherwise usually was for the data science team and machine learning team, and everything. For everybody else, it was a black box, like you said, and a magic. I think it's changing now. Everyone wants to connect with it, use it. They're delighted by what they are output that they get, and that is a big change because the more people will interact with it, the more ideas will come, which was the story of internet.
And we've just hit our second interval, and it's only going to get faster now.
Oh, gosh.
So before we start the clock for the next one, let's kind of want to get your opinion on some of the AI news that's occurred. So we covered like all these open source models. We covered some of these fundraisers that are at pretty ridiculous valuations with like zero revenue. Just, I guess, what is your opinion on this, and like how would you like think about using it? I'll just give you an example, by the way. Whenever any open source model comes out, our team scrambles to look at it, examine it, run some evals on it. I go on Hugging Face and try to download it on my local machine at home, and then I like try to stress test it and see what's going on with it. But I'm just curious, like, how does your team or how does yourself react to all this news that comes out?
I'll tell you, I bet one of my team, they end up seeing one link being dropped in their channel every day. It's like, have you seen this? So yes, lots of innovation, but what would you expect if with the technology that's in a very early stage? So I'm happy that these things are happening. It needs to happen because I think the cost of this Gen AI space or the whole model, GPT models is very costly. So it has to come down for more innovation to happen. So I think I'm glad that more models are coming out at faster rate. And to talk about, how are we reacting to it? I think we are reacting to it very positively. I am looking for bring it on, and I'll pick the best. I'm a consumer here. And the more opportunity or the models or variety it is, the more I can pick the best that works for me. And on the aspect of application side, as you mentioned, and usage side, for me, it's more of like, as these startups are getting these funds, what are they solving? So I get it that we feel that the evaluation is maybe not right or either way, but I bet these investors are investing because of the value or the idea they think it will create. And maybe we are not maybe we are yet to see or understand that, and that might be the feeling of big valuation. But this is how Silicon Valley has always worked. We bet big money on the value it will create, many years in future. And if that is what we are looking at, I'm sure the technology is powerful enough to create that value.
So, I mean, out of all of them, there's I think a new AI startup every day, if not, faster. Are any of those kind of out there, any of those kind of ideas, those future ideas that okay, I can see that value, that future. What are some of those things that we're I'm really excited to see those things come into fruition versus maybe how do you distinguish that from maybe someone's that just feels like a GPT wrapper on something and that might just be hype. How do you go about kind of thinking about those?
See, in general, there's everybody understands the Copilot version of your product, and that's helpful. That's great. I think that is now kind of like a table stake, pretty much, right? Within a year, it's a table stake. I think the next phase is what more can you do? I advise a startup. They are trying to solve for incident management. Usually, you would not see that as a very fancy category, but it's so much value if you, as a technology leader, it helps you solve for COGS. For the space we are in at Okta, it's a mission critical product, which means how can I make sure that I'm reacting to issues faster or even automatically if need be. The product has so many variety or so many features, which means that how can you make sure the people who are on call can very quickly get to the core issue and help solve it. So that's certainly something that I'm looking forward to. How can we transform this particular area? So that's one. I was talking to a CEO in the healthcare space who was also looking for in this Gen AI for the next level, which is how can we make the cost of certain group, there's a set of patients who need to be called to be reminded for taking medication, who need scheduling support and all of that. But it's costly right now because a human has to do. Gen AI can understand that context, their health background, and make it cheaper. This is just two examples, but those are the things which is, I would say, the next step after Copilot version of it, which is what is getting ideated on, and I can't be more excited.
All right, we're coming down the wire. Anshul, do you want to tee off the next question here? We're at the 2-minute mark.
Sure. Yeah, I think, obviously you're leading a large team at Okta of world-class technologists. What jobs at Okta do you see changing the most? I mean, we're taking all these co-pilots that are coming out, some that maybe are having a bit more promise today than others. Which jobs do you see changing the most, and how do you see them changing internally at Okta?
All jobs should be changed one way or the other. And I would say should be changed for more improvement. Certainly as engineers, all of us will be touched by how we can leverage this technology for more repetitive tasks, things that we get that it should be done in this way so that we can focus on more innovation. Certainly, answering a certain question or all of that, like I mentioned, customer support area, I'm sure marketing will be touched. So I feel every space will be touched, but to make us smarter. Right. I think I remember. I don't know if you had to, but when GDPR came, everybody was scrambling to figure out how to implement, and I was reading all of that, and it. Okay, let me just admit, it did not make sense right after that. So we were lucky. We had a wonderful person who had legal background and could convert, but also understood technology. And we were great friends because he would connect that legal jargon to say, we can interpret it in this way or this way, and what can we do with technology? And that was hugely helpful. Can I now interpret legal documents myself? I don't know yet, because I still need a trusted person to say, is Gen AI saying the right thing? But it has made it more accessible. So I do feel a little smarter than the past.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking whatever the job role is right now and widening it a bit, right? Like
Exactly.
now maybe I'm not just like this particular part of the stack of the company. I can actually flex a little into orthogonal things and maybe independently do things rather than having to wait to do a bunch of
Exactly.
else.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exciting.
As much as I want to weigh in, we are already on the next interval. This is the 64 seconds
to go
left.
quick.
Okay, so I want to ask, how do you embrace? Oh, I forgot about that. I want to ask really quick, how do you embrace AI in the organization, but also set the right expectation? Because some people think it's going to do 100% of the job, but in reality, like you said, it could be 15%, maybe it's up to 75%, but how do you set that image and really set the expectations with the organization?
I think it's very simple, which is, are we able to do better than what we were doing yesterday? I think that's my definition of productivity. If we are doing that, then that's efficiency and productivity, and we're moving in the right direction. So every productivity aspect, if we were writing testing, can we do it faster? If we were doing releases in a certain period, can those teams move faster? But measuring at team level, not individual level. So that's the definition of for me to adopt, and that is how I set the expectations. But setting some boundaries of best practices. What are the best practices? Who to go to when you need help? And giving that guidance of like continuous training. So I also encourage my team to say, don't assume that the tool is tool and you have nothing to learn. Like I'm sure there's some learning aspect here that others are stumbling upon, and you can, or we can do more structured learning. So I am working on bringing structured learning for them. We do monthly newsletters to say who learned what. And those are all the things we uncover as we go through.
All right.
Sorry, my time is
No,
up.
that's
Your
great.
time is up.
Okay.
Expectations and then continuous learning. That's the motto here.
I love how you summarize it.
All right.
Thank
This
you.
is getting
It's gonna be
intense.
fun. All right,
It's only
32 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Anshul, why don't you tee this off?
So I'm gonna flip it back in. I want to hear from you. What is the first thing that you did with like ChatGPT or a Gen AI product? Take us back a couple of years now.
You bet.
You were just like, oh, this is going to be real. This is something.
So I remember the first conversation, my daughter and I having ChatGPT. She's like, well, show me. And I go to ChatGPT, and she says, ask ChatGPT if, on the Gatsby, if Nick is better for, I forget the.
For Daisy?
For Daisy,
There we
thank
go.
you. And I did, and ChatGPT gave an answer. And she's like, well, it doesn't even know that it wasn't Nick. It's Tom, actually. So I went to
we go.
ChatGPT, and she walked away. She was like, it's not good. And I said, ChatGPT, it's not Nick, it's Tom. And it actually apologized to me. It said, I am sorry. You are right. It's Tom. And then it repeated the response. And I'm like, okay, mistake made, but the humanness of like, okay, I made a mistake, and I'm not going to just spit the new answer, but I will apologize and then go to it. I think there was a delightful aspect of it.
Okay, and then next question. What is an application of AI, current or even unexplored, that gets you excited?
Oh gosh, so many, because like I said, I've been saying it again and again, we are still in the early phase. I would say there are conversations about back office, how it will help in the back office space. I also get excited about, white space that Gen AI or even AI has not touched yet. I mean, climate change, no one's talking about, why not Gen AI in that space? There's so much data in that space.
That would be an interesting one. I'd be curious to hear about that. But I'm going to ask another question. So 8 seconds this time. What is something about AI, one thing that keeps you up at night of the current state of AI?
Current state of AI has both good aspect and bad aspect. So what keeps me up at night is how can we adapt the right things faster? I feel like we have not unlocked that completely.
Moving fast
All
enough?
right, yes, it's pretty fast. Knowing that folks learn as much from their peers, who is another executive whose opinions on AI you follow and respect?
This doesn't fit in the time frame. There's just too many people. And I, like I said, there's more opinion that's forming rather than formed. Of course, Andrew Nugg comes to mind, and we read his. I just recently, from a different writer, I read the book AI 3.0, which was a very insightful book. So I think I would say it's not a one person, it's more of like I'm gathering, and I'm sure that's true for many. I'm gathering opinions and ideas so that I can form mine.
All right. So it's 2 seconds, so it's probably just one or two words at this point. I think you just kind of mentioned it, but maybe just for the audience, what resource or resources do you follow to keep up with AI news?
Gosh, all the latest trends and news, and I think now I'm going to follow your podcast.
Love it. I might have set that up question up to be a little self-serving.
That's true. But like I said, opinion. So there's a lot of. I also listen to the podcast or panels that's out there and books because again, everybody has an opinion. There are variety of opinion, and we have to form our own.
All right. And what is one word to encapsulate your current opinion of AI?
Upward and onwards.
That's like 2 words, but we'll take it.
I love it.
We'll
I
take
love
it.
Well, Bob, thanks you so much for coming by and having this conversation. I learned a lot about kind of how you view products and your internal teams and productivity and where all the AI is going. I'm sure we're excited to keep talking to executives like yourselves to gather those opinions and put them all in kind of one place. So thank you again for coming by.
Well, thank you, Anshul and Jeff, both of you, for inviting me. And whoever came up with the idea of floating point, this was very interesting, which kind of pulled me into having this conversation as well. And I also want to give a quick kudos to Codium itself and the work that you all are doing for actually making our software engineering effort smarter and better. So I appreciate all of the thinking that you're doing and partnering we have.
And for the record, we did not ask her to say that, but
They
we
did not
appreciate
ask
it.
her
We
to
appreciate
ask
it.
me to say that. You're right.
All right, we'll wrap that up. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.